Solve the following quadratic equation, given your answers correct to one decimal place. And so we have w squared plus 3w minus 8 is equal to 0. And so this right here is the quadratic equation. This right here is the quadratic equation that we need to solve. And so in this case, we're going to use the quadratic formula to help us to solve this quadratic equation. Now the general form for a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a is the coefficient of x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant. And so in this case, we have that a is going to be equal to 1, b is equal to 3, and c is equal to -8. Now a is equal to 1 because the coefficient of w squared, again, the coefficient of w squared, or the number in front of w squared, is 1. So that's why a is equal to 1. We have b is equal to 3, and that's because the coefficient of w is 3. So a is equal to 1 because 1 is in front of w squared. B is equal to 3 because 3 is in front of w, and c is equal to -8 because -8 is the constant. And so with those things in mind, let us substitute. So we have this quadratic equation, we have this quadratic formula, which helps us to figure out what w is equal to. And so w is going to be equal to -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so we substitute. We say that b is equal to 3, b is equal to 3. We say that a is equal to 1, a is equal to 1. And we say that c is equal to -8. Next, we evaluate the expression underneath the square root. So we have 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times -8. And that gives us 41. So we have -3 plus or minus the square root of 41 all over 2. And then we have w positive. And so w positive is going to be equal to -3 plus the square root of 41 all over 2. And w positive just means that we're going to put the positive sign in between these two terms. Next, we have w negative. W negative means that we're going to put a negative in between these two terms. And so because it's plus or minus, so we have to see what happens when we have a plus, we have to see what happens when we have a plus sign, and we have to see what happens when we have a negative sign. And so what is the square root of 41? Well, the square root of 41 is 6.403124237. And so we have a -3 plus this particular decimal all over 2. And so we have -3 plus 6.403124237. And so when we compute the numerator, when we operate on the numerator, we get 3.403124237. That's what we have here on top. But we still have to divide by 2. And when we divide these two numbers, we get 1.701562119. So w positive is equal to 1.701562119. So that's what w positive is equal to. Next, we have to figure out what is w negative. Now, w negative, in order for us to do that, we're going to take the square root of 41, and the square root of 41 is 6.403124237. And so we have a -3 minus this particular decimal all over 2. And so we have a -3 minus 6.403124237. And when we operate on the numerator, we get -9.403124237. That's what we have as the numerator. And as the denominator, we have 2, so we have to divide. And when we divide, we get -4.7015621119. Now, they want us to write these answers correct to one decimal place. And so if we notice here, this right here is 0, so it's less than 5. So since it's less than 5, we cannot round up, so it's just going to be 1.7. So w positive is equal to 1.7, correct to one decimal place. And the same thing is true here. So this right here is 0. And so since this right here is 0, that means that we cannot round up. So we just have to leave it as a negative 4.7. And so that means that our answer to this particular question is that W is equal to 1.7 and that W is equal to negative 4.7. Again, W is equal to 1.7 and W is equal to negative 4.7. And that's the answer to this particular question.